up, Internet? The press was to serve the governed, not the governors. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And the news is the first draft of history. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the Oscar-nominated film, The Post.
Is it Oscar nominated now? What are the Oscar nominees? I'm so behind the times.
There's a lot of them. Get Out, I know that.
Lady Bird,
I know that.
The Post,
I know that.
Shape of Water, 3 Billboards. I'm just saying
Call Me by Your Name. Darkest Hour.
There's one other.
Well, not the Cloverfield Paradox. But we're not talking about any of those. We are talking about The Post. And
Steven Spielberg's The Post.
Steven Spielberg's
Should
The
it just
Post.
be that? Steven Spielberg's The Post?
Sure.
Or we make sure that every time we say it,
I think it's very blatant.
It's a 4-word.
But I don't want to unwrap this alone or just with you, Shahir.
Why not?
Because it's a little bit more complicated, I feel like, especially with some of my previous histories in film of this ilk.
I feel like the spotlight discussion is going to come back and bite our ass.
But ladies and gentlemen, we've brought in some special help here to unravel us, basically our thoughts in this the post world. With us today is comedian, photographer, and adjunct philosophy professor at the College of New Rochelle, friend and fellow Vidiot, Mr. Alzo Slade.
What's up, man?
How you doing?
That boy Matt Kroll read my LinkedIn profile.
I did.
He really did. It's an impressive LinkedIn profile.
LinkedIn profile.
That is a lot of different things. Comedian,
Actually, comedy's not on the LinkedIn profile.
Oh, isn't it? He must just be stalking you on Twitter.
I stalked all your social medias, and then I just did a...
You like consolidated bills.
Yeah. But that is an impressive array of pretty wide variety of things to do. So an adjunct professor in philosophy, comedian, and photographer.
Yeah.
How do those things kind of mesh? Because they feel like they're all like such different disciplines that you have to be an expert in one and start the other. It's not like you can jump from one to the other.
They all deal with the human experience. They all deal with human observation.
Okay.
Yeah, philosophy is the love of wisdom. As a comic, you're a social commentator, right? And as a photographer, you speak to the world through your lens, telling them what you have to say.
Okay, and where in that spectrum, where do you think film kind of fits in the commentator of the world?
Oh yeah, film is right up there, man, because it's a space in which you can create stories, right, or bring alive stories that people didn't know existed. Hence the posts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, what about your history with film? Like, what films do you gravitate towards? What's even just the film that you love that you love to talk about.
Malcolm X.
Oh yeah. That was a big one for me.
Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Forrest Gump.
Yep.
Glory.
You're all around the 1994 period. That's that was your jam.
You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to think I never thought of it like that.
That was like the year
I'm like old ass. Dust off my VHS.
Yep.
My laser disc.
Yeah. Man. Great analog format laser disc.
Yeah.
Well, The Post.
If we're in the 1994 period, we're talking peak Spielberg at that point as well. And we are in the first Spielberg film that we have done on this show.
Is it really?
It really is.
We definitely didn't do War Horse.
We haven't done Bridge of Spies.
We didn't do Bridge of Spies.
We haven't done Lincoln. Haven't done the BFG.
And then we weren't around for the rest of them.
Well, yeah.
We were around. We weren't in this room doing this thing.
So how do you feel about Steven Spielberg? I'm a New Zealander who, knows what Steven Spielberg means and has a special connection to Steven Spielberg. But I wonder what it's like being, what do Americans think about Steven Spielberg?
Alza?
I think Americans think the dude is an icon.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like when he been in the game for
forever,
thousands of years.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm relevant in the game the whole time.
Right, absolutely, and he is yet to be brought up on sexual harassment charges. So he's at the top of his game right now.
This is the Spielberg Renaissance right now, just because he hasn't been accused by anyone.
Exactly.
Meryl Streep's not coming out and saying Spielberg.
Everybody else falling off.
I know Quentin Tarantino the other day. No, he hasn't brought up on sexual harassment charges, but the stories around Kill Bill now are kind of.
Right, Charlize Theron just came out with something.
Uma Thurman.
The same thing.
White South Africans in a movie? Is that what it is?
Look, Spielberg, I've even said it on this podcast, that I feel as though his latest things have not really lived up to his pedigree for me specifically.
Okay.
However, again, the word icon is incredibly, I mean, that's just correct. There's a reason why when I was coming up through film school and then even through my entire life before that, like middle school, like everyone's like, oh, I want to be a director like Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Like he became the mold you wanted to fill. At least in where I grew up in America. I don't know how that was sort of in New Zealand.
No, well, Steven Spielberg exemplifies for me, and I guess maybe for people in the film industry, yes, without a doubt, Steven Spielberg is an iconoclast. He is he's a living legend. He is, when it's unfortunate to say it in this terms, but at the time in which Steven Spielberg will pass will be, it'll be a ripple through the film industry that will be felt by everybody.
Right.
And he leaves behind a legacy that is untouchable. He ranks up there amongst Hitchcock, Kubrick, all the greats. And so it goes without saying, but there is something about Spielberg that I think, he can occasionally be dismissed by critics and audience goers alike in that he can exemplify maybe sometimes simplistic filmmaking. He is a manipulator. He is an amazing manipulator. No, I'm using that word carefully because I'm not saying he's manipulating for bad. I think he's actually a master manipulator, and that's what good filmmaking is. But the way I would phrase Spielberg, he is to American cinema what Norman Rockwell was to American painting. He is an iconoclast. He is what you identify American cinema by.
Yeah, he's the people's director.
Yeah, he's the exactly.
You're not gonna get the real film connoisseurs to put Spielberg in their top 5 directors.
They should, though. I mean, just legacy.
But legacy, yes. But if you're looking at avant-garde,
right.
I mean, there's an interesting quote I remember I recently heard, and this was relayed a few ways, but Stanley Kubrick said about Steven Spielberg. He was talking about Schindler's List, and Schindler's List is one of the iconic Spielberg films. But he said this thing which I thought was interesting, and I want to bring it up because I think it'll come into our review of the post.
Sure.
But he said Schindler's List is not about the Holocaust. The Schindler's List is about 500 people surviving and thriving. The Holocaust is about the failure of the human race.
Okay.
And his quote, it's a very sort of prototypical Stanley Kubrick thing. And if you remember, Stanley Kubrick and Spielberg actually worked together later in Kubrick's career.
Yes.
Around AI, and they knew each other as well. But it's that thing, which is that Spielberg has known to find the triumph in tragedy, and he's very good at tragedy. But a filmmaker like Kubrick is a person who drowns our soul in the tragedy of like Full Metal Jacket is not a film like Saving Private Ryan. They do very different things.
Right.
And you could argue that one of the things that Spielberg can do, and the worst of Spielberg tendencies is to glorify is the wrong word, but patriotism is also the wrong word, but turn moments of real tragedy into saccharine. And I think that's I
see what you're saying.
It's we're here to I know. And Spielberg is one of my personal icons, but I want to interrogate his work critically.
I get what you're saying. And now this is how I'll sort of break this bit down. And gentlemen, please tell me if you agree or disagree.
Disagree.
Well, this has been so Spielberg, right? I think the minor problems you've just described, Shahir, that you kind of have with.
I don't have with him, by the way. I just think that these are interesting
You're
thoughts
bringing
about
up
him.
the problems that some nebulous otherworldly person that is not necessarily in this room has with Steven Spielberg is he and I like the word manipulation because it is true. Manipulation has a bad connotation, I think, but I feel like a lot of great people have manipulated other people to do things that have helped people. Because a person is very smart, people on occasion are very stupid. The Spielberg takes stories that are sometimes hard to digest and does sort of make them into almost, and this is going to be sacrilege to a point, but he does a similar thing that almost like half-hour sitcoms kind of do with hardship. And that is, you can fix any problem in a half hour, right? That's sort of that's sort of like, that's an extreme thing, but like you look at like anything, Full House, Family Matters, like whatever. They had a issue. There's a thing. Sometimes it gets real heavy, and then they fix it normally in the half hour. Spielberg can take the heaviest stuff, make it the most digestible for the largest amount of people, and then basically make it sort of almost at the end be about something hopeful, even though it's not, it wouldn't normally fit into the backdrop that he's chosen to portray the thing in.
I don't mind that at all.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, actually, because I think sometimes, excuse me, sometimes reality is hard enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you go to see a film, it's an escape. And so if you can give us a dose of reality and sprinkle it with some hope, I'm for it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And even open up the conversations to the more serious topics that are often just the backdrops of his films.
Right.
You know, that's something that, I mean, again, for as much as I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that's something they don't do. I mean, that's pure saccharine. That's pure escapism. That's, you know, when they mention very little things, but like you're never going to really learn an important lesson from history watching a Marvel movie. So like to have someone out there that can kind of, it's like when you're making a character in a video game and you have all your different stats, he like levels them out all to like even. He's like a good like middle ground director.
And you know, like it shouldn't be discounted again. The length of time he has been making cinema and the length of time that he has been relevant in the game, it means that he is that's a skill that, you know, some of the best directors working today do not have.
Yes.
You know, like you can see other filmmakers that make amazing films that won't be as relevant as he is today. You know, Spielberg is Spielberg, and you know, like, I mean, it's. I remember I saw the BF. You know, I always go, what whenever a Spielberg film is playing in a movie theater, I'm like, well, it's also like, what a time to be alive, you know, like to be able to go see his movies in a movie theater, right? Still, you know, like this is the guy who gave us E.T., Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, you know,
his resume,
you know, AI, Minority Report, you know, like this is the guy, you know,
I don't even think I realize how much it's like when you go to a concert and you see an artist, and you're like, dang, I forgot they had all these hits.
Yeah, this guy's hits. You know, like they go back a while, and he, you know, they are amongst the greatest.
I mean, E.T. was a game changer.
Oh, E.T. Course. You know, Jurassic Park was the one.
He did Jaws.
Yeah, Jaws,
Amistad, Saving Private Ryan,
like, you know, like this guy, like, and then
Hook. He did Hook.
Yeah,
I love Hook.
And in the middle of it,
I'm good on Hook.
But you know what's funny?
I didn't even like Amistad that much.
Well, Amistad didn't. So this is the interesting thing is also Spielberg is a guy who has made historical films all throughout his career. Many historical films. Yeah. You know, Lincoln, Amistad, The Color Purple, Empire of the Sun, Munich, The Post now as well. So he's made a lot of, you know, interesting films that reflect upon America. And I think, you know, there's something interesting in the way that I think he strives to open up the conversation beyond what he would do in a Raiders of the Lost Ark or what he would do in Jurassic Park. And I think for me, the one that's the most interesting...
Nazis bad, dinosaurs dangerous.
Yeah, but then, you know, the Holocaust is like Nazis have some humanity in them. You know, like that's an interesting. He brings that out a little bit. But Richard Spencer of the alt-right, please don't listen into that part of the conversation.
No.
But the film that I think is really interesting from him is Munich. It's a film that like not a lot of people saw or celebrated, but it's a pretty amazing film, and it's the kind of film that you wouldn't expect from a Steven Spielberg because it actually goes to a pretty dark place by the end of it, and stays in that dark place, which is something that he, you know, like we just said, is not normally what he does. Regardless, I kind of wanted to tee up Spielberg before we got into 2017 Spielberg.
Right, and even before we do that, Shahir, if Steven Spielberg was listening and he wanted to get in touch with us with what he thought of his own review of his movie or whatnot, where could he find us?
Steven, you can email us at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com, or if you're on Twitter, @onlymoviepod, or, you know, maybe Steven likes the fact that we're going to review his film, so he could write us a review on iTunes if he wanted to. I wonder what a Steven Spielberg review of Matt and Shahir's show, the only podcast about movies, would sound like. Would it start off dark and then get a little hopeful towards the end? And you're like, these guys are terrible.
I would hope so.
But we need them.
No one needs us. But let's talk. Actually, I'm going to tell you exactly what IMDb says the post is.
Okay.
All right.
Just to tee us
Hit
up.
us up.
A cover-up that spanned 4 U.S. presidents pushed the country's first female newspaper publisher and a hard-driving editor to join an unprecedented battle between the press and the government.
Dum dum.
Dun 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 dun.
Now, does that sound like 1970 or does that sound like 2018?
You should have read it in your trailer. In a world.
That's why Steven Spielberg basically fast-tracked this. He took time off of making Ready Player One, and decided he's like, no, I need to make this first because it's timely, and important.
And by the way, if you do get to read the story of how this script got fast-tracked, basically the first draft from a young writer by the name of Liz Hannah, who's never sold anything, never had a script made before, writes her first spec. I don't know if it was her first spec script, but gets the script out. Amy Pascal buys it and then calls Liz Hannah up, 31-year-old writer, by the way, and says, hey, Steven Spielberg wants to make your movie and is going to make it right now. Like, he's got another movie coming out and he's going to make yours immediately. A friend of mine actually worked on this as well, and she was like, she was an art director on my shoot, and she was like, oh, last week I did a Steven Spielberg movie, and I didn't even, I just knew that he was doing Ready Player One, and it was like, a Steven Spielberg movie about the Washington Post is coming up.
She's like telling her landlord, so I'm gonna have that rent, that back, that back rent for you
for the next 5 years.
Yeah. I guess, gentlemen, first, Alzo, let's start with you. Sort of first thoughts on the post.
I thought it was a great movie. I mean, I'm a historical fanatic. Like, I'm a history buff. And I've studied the evolution of American journalism, and so I knew the backstory before I watched the film.
Right.
I did kind of take issue with them focusing on the Post only.
Yeah. Right.
As opposed to the New York Times, because the New York Times was actually
they lived us.
Yeah, the paper that set it off.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there was the editor in chief of the Times at that time. He had a decision to make, and the same situation that you saw Meryl Streep's character in was the same situation he was in. And he had to figure out whether he was going to publish it or not. His attorneys were saying no. His attorneys wouldn't even read the Pentagon Papers. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so, but I think it is timely. I think I can understand why they went with the Post.
Right.
Like, it's a woman, and she's in a position of power and influence, and we, the world is finally waking up to the idea that women are amazing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so, I'm not mad at them for doing that, but I think they could have given the New York Times a little more credit, a
little more shine. Yeah, they kind of mentioned that they did it first, but they never focus on it at all. Which, I guess, for me, I don't mind that as much, only because I think with the added things, sort of, again, Meryl Streep's character, the sort of other underlying things that just and they basically did that plus an underdog story with the second smaller paper to do it, because the Post was definitely not the Times. It was a
local paper at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that might have made it, at least for me, while maybe not giving the correct people the proper shine that they deserve, it makes it a little bit more of a interesting story, or something this film did very well that I really appreciated is whenever a historical, something that is literally documenting historical events is just showing us the story of, when it develops characters enough and when it just sort of is engaging enough where I know the outcome, but inside I'm feeling like this could go either way. Like that weird, emotional warble, even though logically I'm like, oh, this is, and this movie really did that for me. And I think you could put that to the script or Steven Spielberg or the actors and actresses themselves. But that having been said, what else? Oh, I really did like, again, the timely sort of feminist angle of the film. There are one or two moments where, actually no, it's just one moment where it gets very Spielberg. And I'll talk about when she's walking down the court steps,
right?
And everyone's looking at her.
Yeah.
It's funny. A lot of people that I've talked to had a problem with that scene. That is like, oh come on, like we're like eye roll sort of moment. And something that this film and a lot of Spielberg movies do, and the reason I think they can get away with it is those moments in a vacuum are very eye rolly. Like they're shot very, again, saccharine.
Yeah.
But the way by that I mean Spielberg sets up films, sets up characters in them, and the way stories unfold. It's so the structure is so sound, like the foundation is built so well that when they throw on the extra 50 pounds that no one was thinking about of weight of a scene like that, I'm like, no, it works. Like it's not gonna.
I was fine with it.
It's not gonna topple anything.
I mean, when looking at it, I was like, this 9 times out of 10 did not happen.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah. Spielberg is Spielberg. There's nobody, I think there's nobody who knows exactly where to put the camera like Spielberg. He knows exactly where to put the camera in every film.
Spoiler alert, if he's going to show a box being opened, you put the camera in that box.
Yeah. The first time I ever really noticed that was the film War of the Worlds. Did you guys see that? Like that first sequence in War of the World, I was like, this guy knows exactly where to put the camera in every moment to make it the most powerful moment it can be. There's nobody else who can do what he does. That said, that said, I was kind of a little bit befuddled by this film in that I thought it was trying to do a lot of things. It was trying to tell the story about this newspaper struggling against this imposed censorship by the government, which is a very relevant story. It's the reason why Spielberg wanted to make this film. It's the reason why this film comes out now in the wake of the world we live in this place. It's also a film that kind of lionizes Katharine Graham as like a feminist icon, a person who took the reign, the only woman who took the reins of a very male-dominated industry and made a decision that would change the face of the newspaper industry as we know it. It also, on the one hand, is illustrating the power of people who are willing to come forward. Daniel Ellsberg, who presented the Pentagon Papers to the public, and the idea that our governments do lie to us. It's a very timely reminder that the last perhaps notable war prior to the Gulf War was Vietnam, which is a war that was built. What the Pentagon Papers really highlight is that war was entirely built upon a lie.
Right.
And I think the film is trying to basically, and at the same time, it's also like a tight newsroom drama, unlike a film like Spotlight, which is a film I love, Spielberg amps up the histrionics here. He swings the camera around when people are making decisions. He flies the camera through the newsroom as people are talking. He does that kind of big, showy kind of camera, and he knows where to put that camera. He knows, he knows how to do it. He knows how to manipulate. But that, to me, because the film was trying to pull in so many different directions, and in my opinion, doesn't quite pull off any one of them particularly well. The histrionics that Spielberg kind of brings to the table kind of actually made it a little bit thinner for me. It made it feel a little bit, in a way, and this is the wrong word to describe a Steven Spielberg film.
Just go for it. Go with what you feel.
But it felt like a slightly insecure film. Like it felt like it wasn't sure. It wasn't sure of where it wanted to land the story, so it just threw everything at it. And again, Spielberg, if you want someone to do that job, Steven Spielberg's your guy. And he's the guy who can do that. But the thing is, I don't walk away from this film. In terms of the Washington Post, I have the same question you do. I feel I look at it and I go, well, this is a film. The New York Times is really the spearhead of this. This is not the Post story, and it shouldn't be championed as the Post story as it is here. Now, I'm not mad that they kind of do that, but it kind of as you're watching, you're going, what about the other paper that did this? The other side is the Pentagon Papers. I'm like, the Pentagon Papers are really interesting. The Pentagon Papers, contain a lot of information about about the manipulation by the government. And it's not just Nixon; it's every president.
Yeah, it's four presidents, right?
Yeah, before that. So, but the film doesn't really like delve too deep into the Pentagon Papers. It delves into like the ethical question of should we publish the Pentagon Papers?
And I like that.
Yeah. And additionally, it doesn't. I kind of agree with what you're saying with respect to character development, right? We don't really like. McNamara is a strong character. You know what I'm saying? Like he's a strong character in this story, but we don't really get a chance to get into his head as much as I would have liked. I mean, it's you don't really get a sense of like what because he commissioned that study, right? He commissioned the study because he came into it like I need to know how we got into this war.
Yeah.
And then once he found out, he was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, exactly.
And he didn't, he didn't tell anyone. He kept it a secret, and that was, to his detriment. And another thing is, I don't know how he could have done it, but this period in history is very critical with respect to American journalism making the transition from an obedient press to an adversarial one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, all the president's men. This is that period of the Watergate scandal.
Right. Exactly. Because there's World War II, the press was all rah, 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 sis, boom, bah.
Yep.
Let's get these bonds. Let's support our guys over there. You know what I'm saying? And they were lock in step with the government.
Yeah.
And then between like, It really started the civil rights movement.
And also the student movement, the student protest movement as well.
Student protest movement, civil rights movement. But then it came to a head with the Pentagon Papers and Watergate. And that's when the press was like, nah, dog, y'all over here tripping. Like, we got to let the public know that y'all fucking up.
Yeah.
And with respect to that, this is the third thing. I think the third foot on the stool of this film is the Katharine Graham story, the Kay Graham story, which is Meryl Streep's character. And I think the film is doing this thing, and you guys even pointed it out, which is that it lionizes her, her ability to go into this world and make a decision. But like I say, Spielberg is the guy to do that job. And that scene where, when she walks through the Supreme Court steps and there are women who kind of part the ways as she walks through, work. Mm-hmm. But the other side of that, the other side of that coin is Katharine Graham is also the benefactor of social segregation, which allows her to be the owner of the Washington Post, a role that she doesn't want, and has never wanted.
Right. Yes.
And she is the role that if you look at what this film is basically saying is the Post is the gatekeeper of information for the people. It is the fourth estate, and what we're saying is. And look, Katharine Graham, she won, a Pulitzer Prize for her novel. She is lionized as a feminist icon. She is a major important figure. I'm just talking about what this film is trying to do with that story. Yeah. And this film basically, in a way, inadvertently or not, and it does address it in some way, highlight the fact that she is the recipient of over 100 years of economic and social segregation, which allows her, a person who didn't want this job, to suddenly be in control of a multi-million-dollar newspaper that is the gatekeeper for information against the people with whom she hobnobs in the weekends. Robert McNamara is a guest in her house. The Kennedys are guests in her house.
So what do you mean she benefits from social segregation?
She's not a person that earns that job. She's a person that gets that job. Now, Now that's not to say people, like the classic hero's narrative is the person who didn't know didn't know they could do a thing and suddenly steps into that role. And that's certainly one side of what this film is highlighting. Like she is a person who stepped into a role and she triumphs because of it.
But they show, Spielberg shows the struggle that she has with regard to her insecurity.
Right.
And
I thought they highlighted
her
that well.
indecision. You know what I'm saying?
And what that reminds me of is a film I also kind of didn't respond to because of this thing, but a fairly triumphant film, in fact, a Best Picture winner, is The King's Speech. Did you guys see the King's Speech?
No, I want to see that. I haven't seen it.
Well,
it's very good.
The King's Speech basically lionizes Prince Edward, or I don't know, one of the
many princes,
one of the royalties, and basically the film is a build up to him delivering a speech, which ultimately sends England into World War II, and it basically. It makes a triumph of a thing that actually caused a lot of people to die.
Yes,
and I think, there's something that's certainly not the case with Katharine Graham's story, but it is the case that she didn't want the job, gets the job, and only gets the job because of who she is and who her family is.
Well, it's the same thing. I mean, it's literally
it's just an observation.
No, I got that, but it's two parts. One, it's the hero's journey, like you just said. Millions of stories. Luke Skywalker didn't want to be a Jedi until he did.
Right.
Like it's all that same thing.
Yeah.
Also, I will say there's something interesting either with King's Speech, or I was actually going to use the other film that just got released recently, The Greatest Showman, P.T. Barnum's story about the circus and all that stuff. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
I've heard mixed reviews, but the thing is, P.T. Barnum is notorious for not being a great dude. Right. But yet now we have a singing and dancing Hugh Jackman that is sort of like candy coating and whatever. So you have these historical figures that get, I'll call it sugar-coated or saccharinized, or you get manipulated into thinking a variety of things about their character. What I like about the Post, and I agree that like if you break down where she's coming from, there might be or her character. I mean, there are societal problems inherent in how she got there and all that stuff. But especially, I think it's important for the good. A vast majority of people seeing this slightly saccharinized version of that role is far better and more beneficial to society than having not seen it. And that's where I like, for instance, the P.T. Barnum thing. No. Right. I would even say King's Speech. Not really, as far as if we're looking for societal value versus the changes you make to make it, or the things you leave out in a story to make it like fit into your structure and make a character seem good.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I really liked the fact that they did that with her. And they chose to. This even goes back, Alzo, to my point about why I kind of liked the Post as opposed to the Times, because it takes a moment in history and an icon of a whole other thing that is very important. And it does. It shaves a little bit of the edges that you sort of have brought up, Sheer. But I think the good that we as a society have about hearing her story on a mainstream scale in this day and age outweighs the bits we sanded off. Okay. Am I?
That's what you're saying.
And I don't want to mischaracterize Katharine Graham's role. I just think that what happens is the film feels a little thin. You know what I mean?
I mean, I ain't shed no tears because she ain't want the job. She didn't, and she ended up inheriting a multi.
Yeah.
Look, again, that happens, and she did step up, and she did make a decision. That's a tough decision to make.
And she had,
but it's a little, to me, the problem is, and she had the Daniel Ellsberg. The guy we saw at the beginning.
Yeah, he got no shine.
He actually made a real sacrifice. He's not a power player in all of this.
No.
And he made the choice to publish secret documents that he felt ethically bound to do. Now, his story has been told. There's a great documentary called The Most Dangerous Man in America. That's his title at the time.
That's a documentary.
Yeah.
That ain't no Spielberg film.
You know what I mean? So I'm just like, it's that balance of like, this is why when the film is anchoring around these kind of three different things, it feels like it's on slightly loose footing for what I think, and it's a little bit thin.
It ain't enough meat on the bone.
Yeah.
I'm going to pivot this into a question. It's the question I wanted to ask since we started talking about this. But I think those three legs that you make it feel like it's not. You're using the stool analogy of the stool is not able, like it's not. If it had four legs, it'd be more stable. I would say
if it was a chair instead of a stool, it might be more stable.
Sure. But what I'm saying is, rather than the leg analogy, I'd rather use this sort of like, I guess, heavenly body analogy or gravitational analogy, where the three things are keeping each other in check and keeping me interested.
Okay.
The film that I wanted to bring up before is Spotlight. Alzo, did you see Spotlight? Okay. It's another.
Y'all got to give me homework.
You got to watch every film about American journalism.
Spotlight, actually, if you get around to watching it.
Wait, which one is Spotlight?
It was 2 years ago.
It won Best Picture 2 years ago.
Mark Ruffalo.
Ruffalo. It was about the Catholic Church.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah, I saw that film.
I didn't like that film.
I don't care.
I know. But
I love that movie.
He loves it, and I didn't
no,
like
I feel
it.
like you said, when I said I liked it, you said I didn't like it real strong.
Yeah,
like I'm wrong for
No.
that.
Listen,
I was like, I like that film. You're like, I did not like that film.
To be fair, Matt, Spotlight has come up a lot on this podcast in many episodes.
Yes.
Where I think it may be one of the biggest points of differential between Matt and I.
Yeah. And I also know, you can even look on Rotten Tomatoes, Spotlight has a 97. Like, I am in the minority of that particular.
And it sounds like you're proud of it.
A little bit. I am. And no, because this is the deal. And this is why I liked, because there's been a lot of comparison between The Post and Spotlight, and mainly because they're both stories revolving around the difficult. Well, I think Spotlight revolves around the difficulty of it more, but like true moments in journalism and why journalism is important. And I feel like the reason why the Post grabbed me more than Spotlight did is those two other aspects, both sort of high concept characterization and different things with them, such as the feminist movement and that sort of bit sort of tied into.
Did you know the connection between Spotlight and this movie?
No.
Ben Bradley, played by Tom Hanks, is Ben Bradley Jr.'s father from Spotlight. Spotlight, the newspaper editor in Spotlight is Ben Bradley's son.
Wow.
Oh, so now you like Spotlight?
No, I don't like Spotlight. Well, Spotlight
played by Sabretooth, Liev Schreiber.
Liev Schreiber.
Yeah.
Oh, I've trained you into noticing Marvel characters now.
Maybe I've just trained myself to say things so I know you'll
understand. So you'll know I understand.
Yeah.
One of these is correct.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
I'm going to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, this is what happens.
This is where I check out.
But the Spotlight was it was so. That was a movie that felt to me like it needed a Spielbergian touch to keep me engaged with it, because the story behind what you're seeing in Spotlight was so strong and powerful, but it didn't. And the moments of gravitas that Spotlight had, I didn't feel when I was experiencing it felt entirely earned due to the fact that they were leaning on that as opposed to engaging with it. Where I feel like The Post engages with it because it has intricate characters and other things to say. And I know that's not. I don't know. I was trying to, because when I came out of this, everyone was like, oh, you're going to hate this. You hated Spotlight. And I was like, I think they're different. I'm not saying, I mean, in my opinion, I think one's better. I obviously know that that's totally just me. I was just interested that everyone thought I would hate this because I hated Spotlight.
Wait, you hated Spotlight?
I really didn't like. I didn't like Spotlight at all.
Hate is strong.
Hate is a strong word.
I strongly dislike Spotlight. I think.
You once said that you felt bad for me because I like Spotlight.
I did
on this podcast.
I did. No, but especially once I see a film that whenever I'm confused about why a film is universally loved and I don't get it, I get mouthy. But I think The Post actually helped me answer why Spotlight, which again is critically acclaimed, is something that didn't connect with me, because I noticed now what does connect with me when I'm seeing stories of this nature. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I was just curious. If I don't know.
I need to watch Spotlight again, but I know I liked it.
Okay,
but I need to watch it again to put it in contrast to The Post.
I think the thing for me here is that Spotlight is on such sure footing in terms of process and story that it actually doesn't need the histrionics, the kind of sweeping.
Sure.
Even the cast that this film has, where every bit player is a recognizable actor. Michael Spielberg is in this for like half a beat.
I really like the Mr. Show.
Mr. Show. Yeah, Bob Odenkirk and David Cross were in this. But I felt the thing is that Spotlight was so sound in terms of what it was trying to do and so assured about where its story was that it landed for me. And I felt like this was a little bit of a case of maybe, again, I like Spielberg a lot. I think he's a grandmaster of American film. But this is a case where like Spielbergiousness kind of overtook what was to me a little bit of a thin stretch of a story. Now, it was just that, and I think the Pentagon Papers is a really fascinating story. That film, The Most Dangerous Man in America, is an amazing tell. And there's also Errol Morris's documentary, The Fog of War, which is a long interview with Robert McNamara. Those are amazing, exposés into what the Pentagon Papers meant. And I just feel like this story is pulling in a few in a lot of different directions, and it's pulling the kind of weight of that a little thin for me. Like, it just, none of it quite landed. Again,
So you think he should have made a decision?
Spielberg or Liz Hannah, the writer, or Josh Singer, who was also the writer of Spotlight, by the way.
But I think sometimes people feel like they make a decision like that. It's at the sacrifice of the others.
The thing that he wanted to do, and I know that, look, the reason why this film lands, and it does land, it actually does work. For everything I'm saying, it does work.
These are just the things you would have sort of rather seen with it working.
No, it's more that it didn't quite work for me for these reasons.
Right. And
right? But it does land. Like, there's no question Spielberg can, anybody who comes in and says Spielberg doesn't know how to make a movie doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it lands. I just think that this, the reason he wanted to make this film, the reason he fast-tracked this film, the reason why the film was so urgent is we live in a time where where the issues that this film is kind of bouncing around are supremely relevant. Like, we have a president that calls every news institution that doesn't agree with him fake news.
Yeah.
But again, this film kind of makes, and this is again, that the phrasing so that you would understand it. It makes an MCU.
That was a little condescending.
That is condescending, but I'm going to use it.
Okay.
Because this film does like an MCU in credit scene, or like almost like an MCU in credit scene for me, where I was like,
it does.
And I was like, oh boy, we really, and that was like, Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks walking away going, I hope we don't have to deal with this again.
And then Thanos shows up.
And then and then you have Nixon playing Thanos, kind of going, I don't want any, those people will never, yada yada yada. And it's like this, it's through the window of the White House, and he's on the phone, which is obviously referencing the Watergate tapes. And then we see the start of the break-in, which leads us directly into All the President's Men. And I was like, oh boy, guys, we're really like,
it's a prequel to All the President's Men.
It's a prequel to All the President's Men. And I was like, I
liked it.
I did too.
I think it's a little wafer thin, and I think it's
not thin. It's connective tissue, and it's a plug at the end.
But I think if the point you want to make is that Donald Trump is an embodiment of government corruption and of government misuse of power, to vilify Richard Nixon in a way that makes it seem ridiculous, like he's just this like shadowy figure, yelling on the phone. To me, it does disservice.
But that's your assumption of what his objective was.
Yeah, but that's what, and because I think that's where the film is. That's why the film exists. Because I think if you wanted to really make a film about the Pentagon Papers, you start and end with Daniel Ellsberg. And the fact that the Post made a decision to print it doesn't seem to me to be the most important thing about the Pentagon Papers. You know what I mean?
Sure, but I think it's an interesting story.
It's an interesting story. It's an and to be fair, it's an interesting story that I didn't know. But sure. Is it a powerful film for me? Spotlight, the amount of work that went into uncovering what that story was, and it was because of that newspaper, is the point at which that story was.
Yeah, the Post wasn't a powerful film.
No.
Yeah.
It wasn't powerful.
No.
Like, I don't need to see it again.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that you just referenced here with Spotlight is you are 100% correct in your statement of it's so much work to get this thing done, but the movie just kind of doesn't do enough. What I would consider style maybe,
yeah.
or work to keep you engaged in the monotony that is the importance of journalism. Does that make sense? Like, it's just, I don't know.
This is the point at which we diverge,
and that's fine. We shouldn't harp on that.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to talk about, and I'm super curious for both of you, another aspect this film does that I didn't expect it to do was it basically talks about how relationships work in and out of professional settings. Right, because all of the players in this film are kind of weekend friends in a weird way. Like, all the major, like they've vacationed together, and like both Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep's characters were like buddies with JFK, they have various parties where like everyone involved in this is there, and they have to sort of skirt around it. And what I found very interesting, and also kind of very telling, again in sort of today's day and age, is this well, when do you put friendships aside? Because a lot of what's going on today is a lot of people that are either, for various different reasons, are just kind of buddies.
Yeah.
Like, that are just going along with bullshit. Like, so, like, do you think this movie did enough? And I'll ask you to start this off. Do you think this movie did enough to sort of, like, kind of in a very, either from a moral standpoint or even from a just sort of a timely standpoint, like, say, like, well, okay, this is when you need to step away from your friend circle?
I mean, the only moment that I can remember. Can I say this?
Yes, yeah, we're now 100% spoilers.
You know, we're in spoilers.
Is the scene in which Catherine approaches McNamara, right? Mm-hmm. And it was like, bruh, what the fuck? Like,
yeah,
like, I'm gonna have to do this. Like, tell me the truth. Like, what were you think? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know if there is. I mean, journalism, they have a code, right?
Yes.
And if you subscribe to that code, then at the beginning is when you say the friendship is off, and we have to do right by the public because we are servants of the public, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But that's easier said than done. And so I would think it's on an individual basis in which you transition from friendship to moral responsibility.
Yeah.
Because I mean but it's all throughout history. Like Mike Wallace on 60 Minutes, like he was friends with a lot of the folks that he interviewed, but you see him sitting across the table from those folks and you wouldn't think he was.
Yeah.
What's her name? Nancy Reagan. She was pissed at Mike Wallace. They used to vacation and kick it all the time, but he got in her ass. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think I don't know if that kind of journalism exists today, because I'm not certain that those relationships exist in that way today.
Right. You think the politicians don't mingle with journalists? I mean, now we're in this real combative.
It feels
like Jim Acosta is not friends with anyone at the White House.
Absolutely. They're not going to the ranch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, maybe it's the contrast then. Maybe that's exactly what it is. I gravitated towards that small bit of this movie a lot, and because I guess I didn't. Maybe it's because in this day and age, it is seemingly the opposite.
Right.
That then I was like a little bit shocked and kind of drawn into that aspect. I don't know.
But I also think it's layered too, because if we go back to the idea of the press transitioning from the obedient to the adversarial, they were in the mix of that. You know what I'm saying? So the one leg was in the obedient press and the other one was in the adversarial one.
Yeah.
And now we're not even adversarial so much as we are sensational. You know what I'm saying? And we subscribe to this idea that the audience has short attention spans, and so we're looking for sound bites and whatnot. So
headlines,
headlines and
clickbait.
So, exactly. And so the it doesn't even seem fathomable that there could be those kind of personal relationships with our politicians.
And the other side is those relationships can be dangerous. Like a cozy relationship with the press that is a one hand washes the other kind of thing. Leads us into the Vietnam War, and it leads us into the invasion of Iraq.
What are you saying about Fox and Friends? What are you saying?
Fox and Friends. Oh my God! Actually, that is exactly. And you hear stories of like Morning Joe, Joe Scarborough, and then like going to Trump's house or Mar-a-Lago or something like that in the weekends. And that kind of, on the one, see the problem that modern press has, and I think the problem that this film kind of, I think in a way inadvertently highlights, is the cost of access. And the cost of access is friendship, and the cost of friendship is subservience. It's like I have to, I can't necessarily, I want to remain friends with you because that gives me access to stories, but I can't say too many bad things about you because that cuts off my access, which cuts off my stories.
Right.
So there's this I think every journalist has this tension, because the great there's two stories that happen in this film. One is Bob Bagdickian, played by Bob Odenkirk, just on the top of his head goes, you know what? I know who this guy, I know where the Pentagon Papers came from because it sounds like this guy. And the only reason Daniel Ellsberg gives him the papers is because he knows who he is. There's a relationship there. But the other side of it is again, Robert McNamara is at Kay Graham's house, having kicking it, chilling. And I think Ben Bradley, again, Ben Bradley is a figure that I'm really interested in. And he was played by Jason Robards in All the President's Men. Mm-hmm. Won an Oscar for it. So this is like Tom Hanks having to like jump into the shoes of Jason Robards, playing the same actor that previously won an Oscar. It's like Jared Leto playing the Joker after Heath Ledger in a way. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like that kind of thing. And there's a speech that Ben Bradley gives about like after Kennedy's assassination. It was Kennedy was a friend of his. Kennedy, and you get into this tricky thing. It was like in the adversarial press works because perhaps they just didn't like Nixon. You know what I mean? Like the press loved Kennedy. Mm-hmm. In America, the press loved Obama. So you get into a difficult situation where like people are, there are 1,000 stories about President Obama that should be written that may not have been written because the dude was a likable guy. Mm-hmm. But for CNN to write like a damning story about Donald Trump isn't a big stretch because they don't have access and they don't like the guy very much.
It's a Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and there's no way am I equating Barack Obama to Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form. But Ben Bradley talks about the fact that, like he was with Jackie O when Kennedy was killed, and he knew and Jackie O comes in and says, you can't report a word of what is said on this plane in the papers. And he says, that's when I knew the friendships were over, and we were now in a period of pure reporting.
That was the other moment. Yeah. But the moment you mentioned also was one I wanted to cite.
The Robert McNamara.
And then also this one about.
But it gets into that sort of odd tension that maybe it's because we're from the outside looking in that makes, and there's so many points in American history where you can say the press has ultimately failed the American people in reporting, true. The last major one is weapons of mass destruction and lead up to the second Iraq invasion. That's a major.
The last one we have confirmation on.
But it's a major failure of the press. That is a shameful moment for the American press, who basically didn't fact check and didn't do the work for the American people.
Sure. I mean, and I think it's easy to throw the stones from where I'm sitting.
Exactly.
Right?
From the outside.
Because it's
access is important.
Access is important, but the other thing is you like your livelihood. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like if you really, I mean, it's pretty simple. Like it's survival. Like if I have a wife and 3 children at home. Yeah. The 3 children are in private school, and I have this certain lifestyle that I'm for certain will be threatened, if not destroyed, if I perform a certain action at my job. Yeah. Right? And if I do not perform it, no one is any the wiser. And, there may be some long-term repercussions to pay on a societal level. Sure. But it's not going to directly affect me and my livelihood. Yeah. Which is what I am directly responsible for. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's tough, bro.
Yeah, and we are in a commercial environment which doesn't allow us it doesn't allow space for the broader ethical questions about whether we should print stories versus when we should print stories. We are in a 24-hour news cycle where the backbone of this film, one of the things we didn't mention is the backbone of this film is that the Post is about to be sold to become a public entity. Yeah. And so now they're concerned about that. Yeah. And I think that is an interesting background to the story.
Well, even the writer Josh Singer, he did both, or he worked on both of these from a time to time. Both, Spotlight and this.
He was the writer of Spotlight.
He did a great quote. I want to see if I can find it. I wrote it down here. He said, "Spotlight was a journalism school movie, how to report a story." But he said, basically that the Post was much more of a business school movie, how to run a business. Right. As far as if you're looking at the structure of what they like, that skeleton of what's happening going on. So I found that very interesting.
A movie that does this story really well and a bunch of things is The Insider, Michael Mann's film. Have you guys seen that? No. The Insider with Russell Crowe. It's about the tobacco industry's ongoing.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just keep naming movies, and I'm gonna say, no, I didn't see that, and then you describe them. Yeah, I saw that.
These are movies. So again, I am.
That was a good movie.
I love films about process and about journalistic process, and that's a film about journalistic process against the backbone of the commercialization of the news. And it does it does a really good job of applying that pressure at the right points. And again, this is a very, 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 very good film.
Transition into your final thoughts because we're running out of time.
This is an excellent film that clearly works because you have a master filmmaker behind it. You have an inspirational story of a young screenwriter, a young female screenwriter, lionizing a woman who has meant a lot to the process of journalism. You know, she entered a world that was traditionally for men, and and it's an amazing story. I just think the circling of the wagons around this decision at the Post and the Pentagon Papers makes this. It feels like the crosshairs were kind of fired. They hit their target, but the direction was like slightly to the right of where I think this film should have been.
Gotcha.
And that made the film, that made the experience for me a little thin and not that powerful. But again, it works. It's timely. It tells a story that matters right now. It's about things that are relevant to our lives. But it's slightly shooting at the wrong target.
Okay. I'll just go then. Alzo, you can take us home with your final thoughts. Basically, I agree with most everything you said. I think it's a good film. It's an enjoyable film. Again,
except the spotlight sucks.
Except the spotlight. That's really what I'm saying. No. Took the words out of my mouth. But the spots that you actually kind of thought it missed its mark on, I think it was just it shows a different target in my mind, and I liked it. Again, I feel like all the different moving parts helped keep me engaged, and overall I've made the story feel greater to me. I think the acting also is off the charts, I think, in this from our two lead. Well, Tom Hanks played Tom Hanks and like doing like a reporter. Like it was very, it is what it is. Meryl Streep.
He's playing a real figure. These are people all playing real figures.
I know. Meryl Streep, every time I see her, I'm always shocked just how much, like, I'm like, why, like, how am I still being shocked at how good she's doing?
She's a beast.
Yeah. And again, Spielberg, like you said, Shahir knows where to place the damn camera. So he
knows how to tell a story.
Yeah.
It's not just the camera. He knows,
I really enjoyed this. I don't think this will take its respective Best Picture nominee all the way to the bank, and I don't think it should. But I think overall I enjoyed it, despite the fact, Alzo, I got to agree with you. I'm probably not going to watch it again in the near future.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about you? If you were to finish us off with this movie, Alzo.
Yeah, man, I think it was a good movie overall. I'm glad I went to go see it. I think I agree with the general sentiment that it missed the mark in a couple of places. Like, I think the film was good enough to make you want to go Google the Pentagon Papers. But if you had no idea of the gravity of the Pentagon Papers before coming into the film, you probably wouldn't have any more knowledge of the gravity leaving the film because, to the points being made here that they didn't take a deep dive into that, and not even that you had to take a deep dive. Like we're not asking you to go to the 10 feet end of the pool. Just go to where the ramp is that goes down. 10 feet, you know what I'm saying? And I think it would have been a bit more powerful in that respect. But to all those folks out there in internet land, if you hadn't gone to see it, go check it out or wait till it comes on USA.
Because that's where it's going to go. It's not Little Land on Netflix.
You're right.
It is like a USA network.
TBS.
Yeah. And it's going to rerun forever. Yeah.
That is very, very true. That is scary true.
Especially around the time of the White House Correspondence. This is going to play every day.
It's going to play right along with Air Force One.
Yeah. Get off my plane.
The American President.
All of those movies. It'll play right.
God.
It fits right in.
I'll watch it then.
Yeah. There we go.
But then those are the times where they take a break from commercials to play the film.
Yeah.
Commercials to sell you things that you shouldn't buy.
That you shouldn't buy based on the thing. Oh, gentlemen. Well, this has been a great discussion and the only podcast about the film The Post. Alzo, Thank you so much for coming, man.
It's been great having you.
Man, it was a blast. I got to come back and do my homework before.
Please, we would love to have you back anytime.
The thing is, we always offer this to our guests as well. Like, come back like with a movie that you want us to talk about. That like it can be new, it can be old, like something. Malcolm X is a movie I've seen like 30 times,
bro,
and
I can write the script to that.
Yeah, it changed my life. So that would be an interesting movie to like talk about.
Yeah, think about it and
come back.
Come back.
I got a list of movies.
There we go.
We want to hear them. But where can people find you?
Yes.
If they want to know what this list is, how can people find you on the internet?
Before we know.
And maybe check out your other stuff, the philosophy, whatever, the philosophy, the photography, whatever. I don't care about that. But this list.
Man, you can find me at Chipotle downtown Brooklyn. Don't put that in there. They ain't paying enough for that.
This episode is brought to you by.
Right. I'm social media, Alzo Slade. It's ALZOSLADE. That's pretty simple.
Yeah,
nice. Across all of them.
Across all of them.
Nice. There you go. That's easy to remember.
Yeah. Shahir, when you're not really lamenting the fact that Cher has 3 legs, where can folks find you?
You can find me on my 2-legged stool, which falls over all the time, at my website, www.shahirdaud.com. That's SHAHIRDAUD, which you can find my life works, Twitter, Facebook. No, actually, not Facebook.
Not
Facebook.
Oh, that's right. You're taking a break.
I'm taking a break from Facebook.
Because you're working.
Yeah. Matt, when you are not on Facebook all the damn time, posting stuff about various film furniture, where can people find you?
Listen, Thanos chair floats, it swivels, it's great. You can find me at Emperor MSK on Twitter, Skeletor the number 4 PREZ on Instagram, or Matthew Kroll, MATTHUWKROL.com for my life and works. Also, still doing the Twitch streaming with extra credits. You can check them out at Twitch/extra credits. And once you're done checking out all that other stuff that we all just mentioned, of course, come back. Let us know what you thought about the post or any of the films we've reviewed at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com or at onlymoviepod on Twitter. Or you can go. I do still check the Facebook page for Only Movie Podcast.
You're not going to get any love from me on the Facebook page.
That's fine. Actually, we have some stuff we had some good stuff on the Facebook page, actually, about a couple films that we just did. I do want to get to it. We'll get to it next time. And with that, I guess we will see you all next week. Also, you're coming back.
Yeah.
I want this list.
I'm coming back with a trill list.
Yes.
Big list.
Do your listeners know what trill means?
I don't know.
What does trill mean?
Trill is like, I could say awesome, I guess.
Sure.
or like too real together.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Trill.
All right.
I learned something today.
My list is too real.
I learned something today.
My list is trill.
I look forward to the trill papers crossing my desk.
Yeah. And we'll decide whether we're going to publish it.
Oh, no. That's not cool.
Yeah. Everything we just said was not trill.
That was not trill.
All right, everybody. We will see you next week, or you'll hear us at least. Talk to you then.
Bye-bye.
Later.
Peace.